Howdy-ho, Andrew here. Welcome to the Onion Buns and welcome to Let's Talk. So, one of the things I hate the most in modern day world is these uninformed, uneducated. They might be book smart, but they are uneducated. They are not smart. People that rally around socialism because they read. Usually they haven't even read about socialism. They just read this little tidbit, this little quote, and they're like, I'm a socialist. And they have no clue what it stands. Like, I shared a joke the other day on my Facebook. Here's the picture of the joke: capitalism versus socialism. And guy I know here in Edmonton. Edmonton's very socialist city, and he's one of the socialists that has no clue what socialism is. And he replies, well, that's not socialism, that's communism. No, that actually is socialism. You go look at Venezuela, that is socialism. And the video I'm about to show you is going to touch on Venezuela, what it turned into. So you're going to get to see it firsthand. But he doesn't understand this. In his mind, he's read a couple quotes and he's heard his buddies in his little echo chamber here in Edmonton talking about socialism, rah, rah, rah. And none of them have a bleeping clue what socialism is. So he thinks it's the greatest thing on face of the earth. What Karl Marx portrayed as socialism is not what socialism is. Karl Marx is an imaginary, not Karl Marx himself, but what he was pushing is imaginary utopia of socialism. It's not the reality of what socialism becomes. And, like, you need no better example is you watch Star Trek. Star Trek is Karl Marx's socialism. It is a utopia, but that's not what we get. And history tells us that's never, ever, and to quote Chris Jericho, ever get when you go down the socialism route. So one of the things I like most in life, since I've started my YouTube channel, is left-wingers destroying left-wing ideology. And that's what I got. Bill Maher, who is left-wing, even though the left attack him now because he has rejected the radicalized extremist alt-left version of the modern-day left-wing, he is still solidly a left-wing Democrat in the States. He's just not a radicalized extremist alt-left Democrat or globalist or socialist. All three of them fit into the same bucket of monkeys. And yeah, so he is calling them out. And I love it. So that's what today's video is. I'm going to run you a segment of Bill Maher doing, and you got to understand, Bill Maher is a comedian at his heart. So, well, he will touch on real issues and he will make real points. You always have to understand when you're watching Bill Maher that there is comedy involved. So you can't take every single thing he says as biblical because he is still going for the laugh. But the generality of what he's saying holds true. So yeah, I mean, I love when the left-wingers go at the left-wingers. I really do. Because I'm a moderate, but I know a lot of right-wingers. And it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what they say. Those people will always respond with Yahtzee, tinfoil hat, conspiracy theory, insult, and just a endless spew of insults. They can never talk on topic. It's always insults. So let's see the left-wingers bring them to boat.
And finally, New World Democrats must recognize that Zohran Mamdani is the future of the party. Unfortunately, it's the Republican Party.
Like I said, he goes for the joke. I honestly don't get that joke because this guy right here, he is an idiot and he is dangerous. And New York is about to find out how dangerous he really is.
Get it? And if you missed his victory speech in last week's mayoral election in New York, don't worry. You'll see it in every attack ad for the next 2 years. Now,
so I'm going to pause this. Take a look at this. Do you like capitalism? No. CNN. defund the police. The NYPD is racist. Well, he doesn't have to worry about that because from what I'm reading is there's been a mass resignation of police officers once he got elected in New York. So New York is about to become a very unlawful hell zone under this guy. Seize the means of production. You're the mayor of a city. You have no production. All the production happens outside of New York. You are dependent on that production. Like, this guy is an absolute idiot. There's just no other way to put it.
Mendami seems like a nice guy, and I congratulate him on an extraordinary political achievement. But before the whole left side of the country catches socialism fever, let's listen to the other big winner in last Tuesday's election, Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, who, before the 24 election, said things like, if the party didn't shift to the center, we will get fucking torn apart. And we need to never use the word socialist or socialism ever again.
That would be very smart of the modern day left, but the modern day left is not smart. Like, she is, the more I hear about, I don't know who she is. Like, I don't cover American politics all that much. So I know the big names. I don't know who she is. I didn't know any of these quotes, but I'm just reacting off of the quotes. Those are smart quotes. Ever since the modern day left, now understand, when I say modern day left, I am talking about the radicalized extremists, alt-left, globalists, and socialists, not the left-wingers like Bill Maher. And ever since the modern day left has started spewing the diversity and DEI and socialist and socialism, their popularity in Canada and the US has been going down. And it's going down big. And you're starting to see people fighting back against it. Not fighting as in punching or shooting. That's how the left reacts. But fighting back politically, organizing. And here in Canada, it's like these two words are tearing our country apart. It's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're tearing our country apart. And in the States, you saw it happening too. Trump, to his credit, and I don't like Trump. Full disclosure, I've never liked Trump, the person. I keep telling people, I didn't like Trump as a beloved Democrat, and he was for most of his life, even though the modern day Democrats try and left-wing media try to delete that part of history out of the equation. He was a beloved Democrat for most of his adult life, and he ran in those circles. I did not like him as a C-grade celebrity. Now, I'll grant you, I got a few chuckles when he went after Rosie O'Donnell, because Rosie O'Donnell is an absolute travesty, and I have absolutely no problem with anyone calling her out, if I can even say her. I don't know what she identifies as. And I don't like him as a Republican president because I hate the tariffs. You know, my idea is what Senator Kennedy proposed. America gets rid of all their tariffs, Canada gets rid of all their tariffs, and we have complete free trade. And I have no doubt that Canada could do well under a system like that. Maybe not as well as I would like because of the top-down control of the Carney government and everything like that, and the insane taxes we pay. It's still a hard sell for businesses to get them to invest here. But free trade, I have no doubt that we could do well under full free trade, but Canada will never allow that. Not with the dairy cartel out of Quebec. And not with the Liberals in power, because the Liberals want power. They want top-down power where they control everything, and free trade does not give them control. So anyway, back to this. It's like, that's a brilliant statement by her, and I endorse that 110%. If the modern day left had any brain cells at all, they would really adopt this.
Well, she was right, but they didn't listen. Typical, am I right, ladies? Well, at least the party has a clear choice here, very clear. One wing is saying, don't ever use the word socialist again, and one is saying,
I am a democratic socialist.
No, you're just a communist, buddy. That's all a democratic socialist means nowadays, is communist.
Clear, huh? So how do we decide who's right? Well, it turns out we don't really have to flip a coin. We have the evidence. In 2024, 13 Democrats won in districts Trump also won, all moderates. This isn't rocket science. All the left-leaning think tanks have done autopsies on 2024, and they all came up with the same message: move to the center. Even the New York Times, which did so much to promote woke politics, now says the partisans are wrong. Moving to the center is the way to win.
So I got to jump in here because I agree 100% with what they're saying. But here's what they're not saying, and this is part of the equation as well, and this is true in Canada too, is moving to the center is not just moving the party to the center. It is clearing out the radicalized extremist alt-left socialists and globalists from their party. And that holds true to Canada too, is like Carney here in Canada keeps saying, well, you know, we're doing this that the conservatives did. Yeah, but he's still a radicalized extremist alt-left globalist. And his party is still the party of Justin Trudeau. It's got all the same members, all the same radicalized extremist alt-left. So it's not a matter of moving the Liberals in Canada to the middle or to the center left. It's a matter of clearing out all the radicalized extremist alt-left socialists and globalists, filling those spots with moderates or center lefters, and then moving the party to the center. And it's the same for the Democrats in the States. It's like, you can't just take this with all these lunatics, because that's what they are, and move them to the center. That doesn't work. You have to clear the lunatics out, replace them with moderates and center lefters, or even left-wingers like Marr. But the ones that reject the radicalized extremist alt-left crap, and then you move the Democrats to the center left. So it's not just moving to the center left. You have to clean out all the trash. And that's where the fight is going to happen in the States for the Democrats and in Canada for the Liberals and the NDPs and the Greens, is they have to clear out the trash and then they have to rebuild their party in the center left. Now, I've long said here in Canada that Canada is best served with the Conservatives as a center right, which they are, and the Liberals as a center left, which they're not anymore and haven't been since 2015, honestly. That's when Canada is best served, but we don't have that. And you can't have that as long as the radical extremist alt-left lunatics are still in the party. Those are the problem ones. They have to be cleaned out.
And Democrats should recognize the party moved too far left on social issues after Obama left office. Gosh, if only someone had been saying that all along. But
he said it many times. Like I said, he rejected the radicalized extremist alt-left Democratic movement. And he is still a Democrat, but he is a left-wing Democrat. He is not a radicalized extremist alt-left Democrat. That's the difference.
But, you know, welcome home. Problem is, Gen Z thinks socialism's wired and capitalism's tired and billionaires are what's for dinner. And who can blame them? If you're 30 and still sharing a bathroom with roommates, capitalism isn't working for you.
See, I disagree with him on this one. Because if you're 30 and sharing a bathroom with roommates, it's not capitalism killing you. It's socialism. It's the cost of left-wing governments that's killing you. Like here in Canada, we've had Trudeau and now Carney for the last, basically 11 years. And these two in Canada will never own a home unless they win a lottery. And that's all because of Trudeau and Carney and their policies. They have killed our economy and they are continuing. And that's not about capitalism. They have been intentionally moving Canada into a socialist country that will eventually turn into a communist country if they get their way. And that's how it goes. You go to socialism and then you go to communism. It's all part of the left-wing ideology. And yeah, so it's not capitalism's not working for them. It's socialism that's not working for them. They're just not very smart because they've been indoctrinated by the schools on their way up. Everyone keeps shoving in their face. You don't have to work. You don't have to do anything. Everything will be handed to you. But we know time and time again, in a socialist country, even though they promise to hand everything to you, they never hand everything to you. You learn to live with less and less and less, as we will get to.
People will reject any economic system where there's a strange hair on the soap. No one wants to be approaching middle age and still writing their name on food before they put it in the fridge.
Nope, they don't.
So they're quiet quitting capitalism and texting socialism that they're down to fuck. Thing is, socialism will fuck you. Because socialism, to put it simply, just doesn't work and has never worked.
Thank you. Finally, somebody said it. Socialism does not work. It has never worked. And I like the last part, like Kevin Federline.
Kevin Federline.
If you don't know who he is, Google it.
I know the kids think that stuff that happened before their appearance on the planet didn't really happen, but it did. We've run this experiment many times, and the results are always obvious. Mm-hmm. Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea.
If you talk to a socialist about this, though, they will tell you, oh, no, that's communism. That's not socialism. That is socialism. Again, socialism is just the stepping stone to communism.
Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's Socialism for the 21st Century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century, or any century, a fucking mess. It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest.
I want you to look at that picture. That's not a doctored picture. That's not edited or anything. That is Venezuela today. Venezuela is oil rich, and they pump out a lot of oil. The frickin' idiots in Quebec buy it. They won't buy Alberta oil, but they'll buy Venezuelan oil. But none of that money goes to the people. It all goes to the government. And that's what Carney and his Liberals and the NDP are trying to do here in Canada right now. This is the result, people, right here. Take a look. That's the result. I've seen images of the state-run grocery stores in Venezuela. They're empty. They have no food in them. They just have a guy sitting at the counter and there's maybe a couple expired boxes of Kraft mac and cheese, which is ironic because the CBC just came out last week and said, low-income Canadians need to start buying expired to save money. I'm not lying. They really did. Here's the image. It's insanity, and this is socialism. And from here, you will go into communism.
Wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening.
Awakening. Nice play on words. I love puns.
Zoran can't make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar.
I see the resemblance, though I think this one is smarter. The Zoltar is smarter.
Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor fuck in the Oval Office last week.
This is what's always left out of the healthcare equation is to get universal health care, you have to pay for universal health care. It's not free. This is the big problem with the socialism mindset is they don't seem to understand the money still has to come from somewhere. It's not suddenly free because you've wrapped your malnutritioned arms around socialism. It's still got to get paid for somewhere. And the more the government runs a debt, the worse things get. Because as I've said in other videos, deficit equals inflation equals higher cost of living. It's that simple, folks. So America will never get universal health care because nobody in America wants to pay 65, 70% taxes on their earnings. Not the Democrats or the liberals. Not the Democrats or the Republicans. None of them want to pay 65, 70% taxes. And that's what it would take to get universal health care in America. So it'll never happen. But the people like Bernie Sanders and those that wrap themselves around that concept, they never talk about the cost and what it will cost people. They try to sell uninformed, uneducated people on the benefits only. Like I'm in Canada, we have universal health care, and our healthcare system is not great. We have doctor shortages. In the States, you can get a surgery done in a couple days. Here, you'll wait. Oh, I had my hip replaced, and I waited 16 months. I couldn't walk on it, but I still waited 16 months. I had this shoulder surgically repaired. That was a 2-year wait. I literally could not lift this arm higher than this for 2 years. And I still had to wait 2 years. That is universal health care when it's not properly funded. But to properly fund it requires paying more taxes. When you charge more taxes, people stop voting for the people that are raising the taxes. It's pretty simple to understand, really.
Bernie, AOC, Mandani are not Democrats.
They're idiots. Okay, he's senile. She is quite possibly one of the stupidest people I've ever seen in my life. And that's saying something because I've met a few stupid people. And he's just a criminal. There's no other way to put it. He is as corrupt as they come.
They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists. And that's a very different thing. And I don't think people know that yet. I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want. All that is socialism.
And he's correct. I keep making this point to people I know here in Edmonton that rah about socialism. You already have socialism and you need to embrace it. No, I don't. You can take some good points. Everything has some good points usually. Well, except for Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney. They have nothing good about them. But normally, you can always find something good in anything. So you take that one good thing and you pull it out. But that doesn't mean you have to take the entire corrupt package. You just take that 1, 2, 3 things that are positive from socialism and you reject the ideology. And that's all you need to do. But so many of these people nowadays, they think it has to be all or nothing. As I said, uninformed, uneducated, indoctrinated idiots. You don't have to buy the whole cow. You can get the milk.
Much of it appropriate to soften the edges of capitalism, but the DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more. You think you're going to win an election on that?
Nope.
This just seems like more extremism at a time when Americans are begging both parties, please, could just one of you act normal?
And that's really about it. It's like I know this girl who, ironically, she lives in Mexico. She's from Canada and she's still a Canadian citizen and she still votes in our elections, which, don't get me started, I think is completely wrong. If you're not willing to live here, you shouldn't be allowed to vote here. she identifies herself as a socialist. She is one of these people. She has no clue what she's talking about. She is just echo chambering what those around her are telling her. And in her circle, they are radicalized extremists, alt-left socialists. Out of Canada, it's ironic. She's around a bunch of Americans and she's constantly complaining about them because they were all Trump supporters. And she was going to me, if you were American and you had to vote in the federal election, this is when the Harris Trump election was going on, who would you vote for? I said, I wouldn't vote for either of them. I don't do extremist politics. But if you had to vote for one, who would you vote for? Again, I wouldn't vote for either of them. I don't do extremist politics. Harris is a radicalized extremist alt-left socialist. Trump is an alt-right Republican. I don't do extremist politics. But if you had to, I'm like, I know what you're trying to do. You want me to say Harris. I'm not going to say it. I would not vote for either of them. I don't do extremist politics. And she just couldn't wrap her brain around this because her Trump derangement syndrome was so strong that she would rather sell out all of America to the socialists and watch them become Venezuela than support somebody on the other side, or not support, or as I was doing, not support either of them. Like, she could not grasp this because echo chamber around her was telling her socialism, one of us, one of us, one of us. I keep saying it, it's a mental illness. Modern day radicalized extremists, alt-left socialism and globalism are a mental illness. We need to put these people in asylums until they can get thinking properly, get the propaganda out of their heads.
It's either defund the police or military in the streets.
Yeah.
Either MAGA's crypto crony capitalism or city-run grocery stores. No, I don't want that. I want a Democrat who reassures me if you like your Whole Foods, you can keep your Whole Foods. Governor-elect Spanberger once said about Biden's presidency that, quote, nobody elected him to be FDR. They elected him to be normal. Normal. You know, at this year's DSA convention, or as it's commonly known, Comic-Con, get this, you had to submit a photo of a negative COVID test to get in 2025. Yeah, no one wants to do that shit again. We've had enough of Trump's macho bullshit and also enough of pussy politics. Yeah. Guy couldn't help himself. Yeah. These Democratic socialists at another of their conventions, they were told to make jazz hands instead of clapping.
Okay, I want you guys to really listen to what Bill is saying here about this convention, because this is absolute positive lunacy. Like, first off, jazz hands, that's bad enough. You know, the only clapping I would be doing is this one to them. And if they can't hear that, I'll give them this one too. You know, but it's the next one that's really wow. And I've actually experienced this next one.
Lest some delegates suffer sensory overload. And also, and I'm not joking, they were told not to be wearing, any aggressive scents.
Please don't go into that space with anything that's like an aggressive scent, for instance, right? Because that's going to be difficult for people.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Really? This is who the Democrats are thinking of following. Chuck Schumer ain't perfect, but at least he doesn't crumple into a heap when confronted with Chanel number 5. You may now clap in the traditional way. Thank you very much.
As I said, Bill Maher is a comedian at heart, so he's going to make jokes to get laughs. But the message is still founded in absolute reality, and it is coming from a left-winger. He is a Democrat. He is a left-wing Democrat. And he started to go down that radicalized alt-left lunacy, and he stopped himself, said, what the hell am I doing? And he rejected it, and he moved back to the left. He's not even center left. He is to the left of center left. He is left wing. But he is normal compared to what you get out of the modern day left wing. Because the modern day left wing is radicalized extremist alt-left lunatics, be it socialism or globalism. They are lunatics. And the only thing they're really interested in is power. Like, make no mistake about it. These people do not give a shit about you. They'll talk up a big game and they'll tell you they want to do this for you and that for you and blah, 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 blah. They're lying, people. They don't give a shit about you. They care about power and personal wealth. And that's it. You know, there's a reason why so many American Democrats are now, and it's not Trump's fault, are now being up on charges for corruption. Like, you hear the odd Republican, and then you'll hear like 30 Democrats for every one Republican. So both sides have their problem people. No, I'm not saying they don't. But the majority of the corruption comes from the left wing. And it's the same here in Canada. I mean, I can't think of the last conservative. Like, I'm thinking of Mike Duffy, but he was acquitted, and that was a whole, I think it was $90,000 was the big story that went on for far too long by the left-wing media. Well, they ignored Mark Harb, who was a liberal and was under the exact same charges for triple that amount, and they didn't even cover him. But anyway, it's, media. What are you going to do? Mainstream media. But yeah, there's a reason why all these people are up, Democrats are up on corruption charges, mayors and everything. Like, I watch a guy named Nate the Lawyer, and he loves covering municipal stories from around the United States. And I just shake my head. It's Democrat, and he's not a Republican, but he's just doing the stories, and it's Democratic mayor after Democratic mayor after Democrat, and on and on and on. And it's just some of the most horrific corruption I've ever seen in my life. And that's the common factor. They're all modern day, all left extremists, socialists, or globalists. Lunatics. So there you go. That was Bill Maher calling them out. And like I said, I love when the left wing calls the left wing out. I think it needs to happen more, because I do agree that the left needs to return to the center left in the US and in Canada. But as I said at the start, you can't just move the party to the center left. You have to clear out all the trash and replace the trash with competent people, and then move the party to the center left. But ideally, that's what Canada and the United States need to happen. And yeah, it's like, I used to joke, this would have been back in about the mid-90s. I used to joke that a conservative in Canada, because they're center right, would be a Democrat in the United States because they don't embrace the far right philosophy of the Republicans. So if a conservative from Canada ever went to the United States, they would be a Democrat back in the early to mid-90s. Well, that's no longer the case. If a conservative went to the United States, they'd either have to be an independent because neither party represent them, or they would have to bite the bullet and become a Republican, because the far right Republicans are still closer to the center right than the modern day Democratic Party is in the States. And I used to say a liberal in Canada going to the States would not get elected anywhere because they were too far to the left. Well, that's no longer true anymore. Nowadays, both the Democratic Party and the Liberals and the NDP and the Greens, they're all radicalized alt-left lunatics, extremists. And yeah, they're all just little piggies in the trough, chowing down, filling their bloated bellies. So anyway, that was my Let's Talk video. What did you think of that one? If you liked the video, leave a like, a subscribe, and a share. I'm trying to grow my channel, and a like, a subscribe, and a share. It does me wonders, and I do appreciate it. It takes 1 second to subscribe, costs you absolutely nothing, helps me immensely. Just hit the subscribe button on the bottom of the screen. I always feel free to leave a comment. I encourage everybody to come in and leave a comment. Please tell me, what do you think on this? leaving a comment not only helps get us interacting, but it also helps me greatly with the YouTube algorithm and getting more eyes on my videos. And as always, pew, 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 and shit. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.